The leather whip cut through the scorching August air of Eureka, California, and Hannah Voss knew the next lash would split her skin open like overripe fruit. But she refused to lower her eyes from the merchant who had accused her of theft she did not commit. It was 1878, and the mining town of Eureka had seen better days since the gold rush fever had cooled, leaving behind desperate men and even more desperate laws that favored those with money and power over truth. Hannah had made the mistake of speaking up in the general store when Marcus Hendricks, the wealthiest merchant in town, had shortchanged her on the wool she had brought in from the small ranch she worked. $5 was $5, and she had needed every cent to buy flour and salt to last through the winter months ahead. When she had pointed out his error, he had turned red as a beet and accused her of trying to steal from his cash box. Before she could defend herself properly, his hired men had dragged her into the street. Now she stood tied to the hitching post in the town square, her wrists bound above her head, her worn calico dress already torn at the shoulder from the first strike. The second blow was coming. She could hear the whistle of it, when suddenly the sound stopped mid-air. "That is enough." The voice was low, steady, and carried the kind of authority that made men pause even when their blood was up. Hannah twisted her head as far as her bonds would allow and saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of slate after rain. He wore dusty trail clothes, a gun belt slung low on his hips, and he had caught the whip mid-strike with his bare hand. Blood welled up where the leather had bitten into his palm, but he did not flinch. "This is none of your concern, stranger," Marcus Hendricks said from where he stood on the store's porch, his thick arms crossed over his barrel chest. "The woman is a thief." "I am not," Hannah said, her voice hoarse but defiant. "I only asked for what was owed to me." The stranger's gray eyes flicked to her face, and something passed between them in that moment, something Hannah could not name but felt down to her bones. Then he looked back at Hendricks. "You are either a liar or a fool, and I do not have patience for either. Cut her down, or what?" The man holding the whip, a scarred brute named Davis, stepped forward. "You will take on the whole town, if I have to." The stranger's hand moved to rest on his gun, casual as could be, but the threat was unmistakable. "Though I expect most folks here have better things to do than watch a woman get beaten for speaking truth. Am I wrong?" Hannah watched as the crowd that had gathered shifted uneasily. Most were miners and ranchers, working people who knew what it was like to be cheated by men like Hendricks. A few women whispered to each other, their faces troubled. Only Hendricks's hired men looked ready for a fight, but even they hesitated when they got a better look at the stranger. He had the bearing of someone who had seen real trouble and walked away from it. His gun was well maintained but worn from use, and there was a certain stillness about him that spoke of a man who did not make empty threats. "Fine," Hendricks spat after a long moment. "Take the mouthy woman if you want her. But she is not welcome in my store again, and she still owes me for the supplies she tried to steal." "She owes you nothing." The stranger pulled a knife from his belt and cut through the ropes binding Hannah's wrists in one smooth motion. She stumbled forward, and he caught her elbow to steady her. His hand was warm and solid, and Hannah felt her heart do something strange in her chest. "In fact, I think you owe her an apology and the $5 you tried to cheat her out of. You have some nerve, $6 now, for the damage to her dress and the humiliation." The stranger's voice had gone cold. "Or would you prefer I take this to the sheriff?" "The sheriff is my brother-in-law," Hendricks said with a nasty smile. "Then I suppose we will take it to the territorial marshal when he comes through next month. I am sure he would be interested to hear about a merchant who whips women in the street." The stranger paused. Or you could pay what you owe and we can all get on with our day." The crowd had grown larger, and Hannah could see the calculation in Hendricks's eyes. He was powerful in Erica, but he was not powerful enough to weather the kind of attention a territorial marshal would bring. With a curse, he pulled coins from his pocket and threw them into the dirt at Hannah's feet. "Take it and get out of my sight, both of you." Hannah bent to gather the coins, her hands shaking now that the immediate danger had passed. The stranger kept himself between her and Hendricks's men until she had retrieved every cent. Then he placed a hand on the small of her back and guided her away from the town square, down the dusty main street toward where his horse was tied outside the saloon. "Thank you," Hannah said when she could finally trust her voice. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did." He glanced at her, and she saw the anger still simmering in his gray eyes, though it was not directed at her. "No woman should be treated that way. No person should be." "What is your name?" she asked. "Samuel Wright. Most people call me Sam." He untied his horse, a rangy buckskin gelding with intelligent eyes. "And you are Hannah," I heard them say. "Hannah Voss. I work at the Patterson Ranch about 5 miles east of town." She touched her shoulder where her dress had torn, suddenly aware of how she must look. Dusty, disheveled, with the mark of the whip across her back. "I should get back. Mrs. Patterson will be wondering where I am. You are in no condition to walk 5 miles. Sam frowned at her shoulder, then at the sun beating down mercilessly overhead. "Let me take you." "My business in town can wait." Hannah wanted to refuse, wanted to cling to her pride and independence, but her back was starting to throb and she felt shaky from shock and heat. "All right," she said quietly. "Thank you." Sam helped her up onto his horse, then swung up behind her. Hannah had never been this close to a man before, at least not one who was not family, and she was acutely aware of his chest against her back, his arms on either side of her as he gathered the reins. He smelled like leather and sage and something else, something clean and masculine that made her skin feel too warm despite the shade of his hat brim. "Which way?" he asked, his breath stirring her hair. She pointed east, and they set off at a walk. For a long while neither of them spoke. Hannah watched the familiar landscape roll by, the brown hills dotted with scrub oak and manzanita, the distant purple peaks of the mountains. Her mind was still spinning from what had happened. She had lived in Erica for 2 years now, ever since her parents had died from fever and she had needed work. The Pattersons had taken her in as a cook and housekeeper, and it was hard work but honest. She had thought she was safe here, thought she understood the rules. But Hendricks had shown her how quickly safety could dissolve when you stood up to the wrong person. "You were very brave," Sam said, breaking the silence. "Foolish, maybe, but brave." "I was owed that money," Hannah replied, hearing the defensiveness in her own voice. "I worked for it." "Why should I let him cheat me?" "You should not. But brave and smart are not always the same thing." He shifted slightly, and Hannah felt his hand come to rest lightly on her waist, steadying her as the horse navigated a rough patch of ground. Men like Hendricks have small souls. They need to make everyone around them smaller to feel big themselves. Speaking truth to them is like waving a red flag at a bull. "So I should have just let him steal from me, let him think he could get away with it." "I am not saying that." Sam's voice gentled. "I am saying the world is not always fair, especially not to women. You have to pick your battles." "That is easy for you to say," Hannah said, then immediately regretted it. The man had just saved her from a beating, possibly saved her life, and here she was snapping at him. "I am sorry." That was unkind. It was honest. He did not sound offended. "You are right. It is easier for me. I can ride away from trouble. I have a gun and people think twice before crossing me. You do not have those advantages." "No," Hannah agreed softly. "I do not." They rode in silence for another mile. Hannah found herself relaxing despite everything, lulled by the steady rhythm of the horse's gait and the solid warmth of Sam behind her. She wanted to ask him questions, wanted to know who he was and where he came from and what had brought him to Erica. But she also did not want to break the strange, fragile peace that had settled over them. It was Sam who spoke first. "The Patterson Ranch, is it a good place?" "Good enough. Mrs. Patterson is fair and her husband does not bother me. The work is hard, but I have a room of my own and enough to eat." Hannah paused. "It is better than some places I have been. You have been on your own for a while." It was not quite a question, but Hannah answered anyway. "Since I was 16. My parents died and there was no one else. I did what I had to do to survive." "How old are you now?" Sam asked. 22, as of last month." She glanced back at him. "And you?" 26. His mouth quirked in something that was not quite a smile. Old enough to know better than to get in the middle of other people's fights, apparently. "I am glad you did not know better today." This time he did smile, and Hannah felt her heart do that strange thing again. He was handsome, she realized, in a weathered, rough-edged way. Not pretty like some of the young men in town, but solid and real. The kind of man you could depend on. The thought scared her a little. She had learned not to depend on anyone but herself. The Patterson Ranch came into view as they crested a low hill. It was a modest spread, a wooden house with a barn and corral, a few dozen cattle grazing in the distance. Mrs. Patterson was hanging laundry when they rode up, and she dropped the sheet she was holding when she saw Hannah on the horse with a strange man. "Hannah, what on earth happened?" Sam helped Hannah down, keeping his hands on her waist until she was steady on her feet. Then he dismounted and removed his hat respectfully. "Madam, there was some trouble in town. Miss Voss was not at fault, but she was injured. I thought it best to see her home safely." Mrs. Patterson was a stout woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took in Hannah's torn dress, the mark on her shoulder and the dried blood on Sam's hand. "Come inside, both of you. Hannah, you need tending to, and you, sir, need that hand cleaned before it festers." "That is not necessary, madam. I should be getting back to nonsense." "You helped my girl. The least I can do is offer you some water and bandages." Mrs. Patterson's tone brooked no argument. "Hannah, go on and change into something decent. I will see to Mr. Wright, Samuel Wright." "Mr. Wright, Mrs." Patterson nodded and headed for the house, clearly expecting them to follow. Hannah caught Sam's eye and saw the amusement there. "You might as well give in now," she said. "Mrs. Patterson always gets her way." "I am starting to see that." He gestured for her to lead the way. "After you." Inside, the house was dim and cool, a relief after the blazing sun. Hannah excused herself to change, peeling off her ruined dress with shaking hands. Her back was sore, but not as bad as she had feared. The whip had only struck her once before Sam intervened, and while it had raised an angry red welt across her shoulder blade, the skin had not broken. She washed quickly and put on her other dress, a faded blue cotton that was worn but whole. When she returned to the kitchen, Sam was sitting at the table while Mrs. Patterson cleaned his hand. He had removed his gun belt, and Hannah was struck by how different he looked without it, younger somehow, more vulnerable. But his eyes were still watchful, still alert, as though he could not quite let down his guard even here. "Hannah, come sit," Mrs. Patterson said. "Let me see your back." Hannah sat, and Mrs. Patterson gently pulled down the collar of her dress to examine the welt. She clicked her tongue. "Could have been much worse. Still, this needs some salve. Hold still." The salve stung at first, then cooled. Hannah bit her lip and tried not to wince. Across the table, Sam watched her with an expression she could not read. "All right," Mrs. Patterson said, patting Hannah's shoulder gently. "That should do. Keep it clean and it will heal fine." She turned to Sam. Now, Mr. Wright, I want to hear exactly what happened in town. Sam told the story plainly, without embellishment. When he got to the part where Hendricks had thrown the money in the dirt, Mrs. Patterson's face flushed with anger. That man is a snake, she said, always has been, but he has powerful friends, so folks let him get away with murder. She looked at Hannah. You did nothing wrong, girl, but you need to be more careful. Hendricks holds grudges. I know, Hannah said quietly. She pulled the coins from her pocket and set them on the table. But I needed this money. Winter is coming and I want to save enough to maybe get my own place someday. A little house, maybe some chickens. I cannot do that if men like Hendricks cheat me. A good dream, Mrs. Patterson said approvingly. And one you will achieve if you keep your head down and work hard, but Mr. Wright is right. Pick your battles. Hannah nodded, though frustration still burned in her chest. It was not fair, none of it was fair. But the world did not care about fair, Mrs. Patterson served them water and cornbread, and Sam ate gratefully. He had good manners, Hannah noticed, and he thanked Mrs. Patterson sincerely for her hospitality. When he was finished, he stood and retrieved his hat. I should be going. Thank you for the food, madam. Where are you staying, Mr. Wright? Mrs. Patterson asked. I was planning to camp outside of town, but after today I might ride a bit farther first. He glanced at Hannah. I do not imagine Hendricks is pleased with me. You could stay here, Mrs. Patterson said. We have a spare room in the barn. Nothing fancy, but it is clean and dry. My husband would appreciate another hand for a few days if you are looking for work. We are short-staffed since our last hired man moved on. Sam hesitated, and Hannah found herself holding her breath, hoping he would say yes. She wanted more time with him, wanted to know more about this man who had risked himself for a stranger. I would be grateful, Sam said finally, if you are sure it is no trouble. No trouble at all. Hannah, show Mr. Wright to the barn. I will talk to Mr. Patterson when he gets back from checking the fence line. Hannah led Sam outside, acutely aware of him walking beside her. The barn was warm and smelled of hay and horses. She showed him the small room at the back, which had a cot, a washstand, and a window that let in the evening breeze. It is not much, she said. It is perfect. Sam set his saddlebags on the cot and turned to face her. They were alone for the first time since he had cut her free, and the air between them felt charged somehow, full of unspoken things. Are you all right, Hannah? Really? I am now. She met his eyes. Thanks to you. I did what anyone should have done, but you were the only one who did. She took a step closer, drawn by something she could not name. Why? You do not know me. You could have just ridden on by. Sam was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes searching her face. I have seen too much injustice in this world, he said finally. Too many times when good people stood by and did nothing because it was safer or easier. I decided a long time ago that I would not be one of those people, even if it costs me. Has it cost you, I mean? Sometimes. His voice was rough, but I can live with that. I could not live with myself if I had walked away from you. Hannah felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back fiercely. She had learned not to cry, learned to be hard and strong, but Sam's words cracked something open inside her. Thank you, she whispered. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed his thumb across her cheek. You are stronger than you know, Hannah Voss. Do not let men like Hendricks make you forget that. Then he dropped his hand and stepped back, breaking the moment. You should rest. It has been a long day. Hannah nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left the barn. As she walked back to the house, she touched her cheek where his thumb had been and wondered what was happening to her. She had only just met this man. She did not believe in love at first sight or any of that nonsense. But there was something about Sam Wright that had gotten under her skin, and she found herself already looking forward to seeing him again at supper. The next few days fell into an easy rhythm. Sam proved himself a skilled and tireless worker, helping Mr. Patterson with everything from mending fences to breaking a young horse that had been giving them trouble. Hannah watched him when she thought he was not looking, admiring the easy grace with which he moved, the quiet competence he brought to every task. He was not a man who needed to prove himself with loud words or aggressive posturing. He simply did what needed doing and did it well. In the evenings, they would all eat together, and Sam would tell stories about his travels. He had been all over from Texas to Montana, working as a cowboy, a ranch hand, even a deputy marshal for a time. He spoke carefully about some things, and Hannah sensed there were parts of his past he did not want to revisit. But he was funny and thoughtful, and even Mr. Patterson, who was usually taciturn with strangers, warmed to him. Hannah found excuses to be near him. She would bring water to the corral when he was working with the horses. She would linger after supper, helping him care for his gelding. They talked about everything and nothing, and Hannah learned that Sam had grown up on a ranch in Colorado, that his parents had died when he was young like hers, that he had been drifting for years looking for something he could not quite name. "You ever want to settle down?" Hannah asked one evening as they sat on the corral fence watching the sun set over the mountains. "Have a place of your own, sometimes," Sam admitted, "but I never knew where. Every town I rode into felt temporary, like I was just passing through." He looked at her sideways. "Until maybe now." Hannah's heart skipped. "What is different now, he said simply. She turned to face him, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "Sam, we have only known each other for a few days. I know does not change how I feel." He reached out and took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "I have met a lot of people, Hannah. Most of them I forget as soon as I ride away. But you, I do not think I could forget you if I tried. There is something about you, your fire, your courage. The way you stand up for yourself even when it is dangerous. The way you laugh at Mrs. Patterson's stories. The way you look at the world like you are daring it to break you." He squeezed her hand. "You are extraordinary." "I am not," Hannah protested, but she was smiling. "I am just stubborn." "You are extraordinary," Sam repeated firmly. "And if you will let me, I would like to stay here in Eureka, not just for a few days. For good. I could look for work at one of the ranches, save up money. Maybe in a year or two we could have that little house you want, the one with the chickens." Hannah felt dizzy, like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. Everything in her screamed to be careful, to protect herself, to not trust this too good to be true feeling. But she was tired of being careful, tired of being alone. And when she looked at Sam, she saw someone who understood what it was like to be adrift in the world, someone who would not try to make her into something she was not. "I would like that," she said softly. "I would like that very much." Sam's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, and Hannah felt warmth spread through her entire body. They sat there on the fence as the sky turned from gold to purple to deep indigo, and Hannah thought that maybe, just maybe, she had found something worth holding on to. But Eureka was a small town, and news traveled fast. Marcus Hendricks had not forgotten his humiliation, and he was not the type of man to let such things go unanswered. 3 days after Sam had arrived at the Patterson ranch, trouble came calling. Hannah was hanging laundry when she saw the riders approaching. 5 men on horseback, Hendricks in the lead on a big gray stallion. Her stomach dropped. She dropped the sheet she was holding and ran for the barn where Sam was shoeing one of the horses. "Sam," she gasped. "Hendricks is here." "He brought men." Sam straightened immediately, his expression hardening. "How many?" "5, all armed." He cursed softly and reached for his gun belt, which he had left hanging on a nail. "Stay in the barn, Hannah. No matter what happens, stay hidden. I am not hiding while you face them alone." Hannah, no. She grabbed his arm. We face this together. He looked like he wanted to argue, but there was no time. The riders were already pulling up in front of the house. Sam took a breath, then nodded. Together, but stay behind me. They walked out into the yard together. Mr. Patterson had come out of the house, his own rifle in hand, and Mrs. Patterson stood on the porch, her face grim. Hendricks dismounted with a smug smile. Patterson, he said, not bothering with pleasantries. I am here for the man who assaulted me in town last week. I did not touch you, Sam said calmly. I stopped you from whipping an innocent woman. There is a difference. You interfered with my business and threatened me with a gun. I stopped an injustice. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should think about the kind of man you are. Hendricks's face flushed. You have a smart mouth, stranger. I am here to collect on the debt you cost me, $6 plus interest. Call it $50 total. That is robbery, Hannah said, stepping forward despite Sam's attempt to keep her behind him. He does not owe you anything. The woman speaks out of turn again, Hendricks said mockingly. Maybe she needs another lesson. Sam's hand moved to his gun, fast as a snake strike, and suddenly his revolver was drawn and aimed at Hendricks's chest. You will not lay a hand on her. Not now, not ever. The men Hendricks had brought tensed, reaching for their own weapons, but Sam's voice cut through the air like a whip. Anyone who draws will die, starting with your boss. Are we clear? There was a long, tense moment. Hannah's heart hammered in her chest. One wrong move and this would become a bloodbath. But Sam stood steady, his gun unwavering, and there was something in his eyes that said he meant every word. Mr. Patterson stepped forward, his rifle raised. Get off my land, Hendricks. You have no business here. He is harboring a fugitive. He is harboring a hired hand who did the right thing. Now leave before I call the territorial marshal myself and report you for attempted extortion. Hendricks looked from Sam to Patterson, calculating. Finally, he sneered. You are making a mistake, old man. All of you, I own this town. You will regret crossing me. The only mistake I see is you still standing in my yard, Patterson said coldly. With a curse, Hendricks remounted his horse. His men followed suit, but they kept their eyes on Sam the whole time, measuring him. Sam did not lower his gun until they were 100 yards away, and even then he kept his hand near his holster. That was foolish, Mrs. Patterson said shakily. All of you. He will make trouble now. He was already making trouble, Sam said. He holstered his gun and turned to Mr. Patterson. I am sorry, sir. I have brought danger to your door. Maybe it is best if I move on. Absolutely not, Hannah said before Mr. Patterson could answer. You did nothing wrong. None of us did. We are not going to let Hendricks bully us. Hannah is right, Mr. Patterson said slowly. If we back down now, he will think he can push us around whenever he wants. Besides, I could use a man like you, right? One who knows which end of a gun to point. He extended his hand. I would like to offer you a permanent position if you want it. Room, board, and fair wages. Sam looked at Hannah and she nodded encouragingly. Then he shook Patterson's hand. I accept. Thank you, sir. Good. Now let us get back to work. Those fences will not mend themselves. But the confrontation with Hendricks cast a shadow over the ranch. Hannah found herself looking over her shoulder constantly, jumping at unexpected sounds. She knew men like Hendricks did not give up easily, and she feared what he might do next. Sam seemed to sense her unease. That evening, as they walked together under the stars, he took her hand. Talk to me, Hannah. Tell me what you are thinking. I am thinking that I brought you nothing but trouble, she said quietly. If I had just kept my mouth shut that day in the store, none of this would have happened. If you had kept quiet, Hendricks would have stolen from you and gotten away with it. He would have done it again to you or someone else. You stood up for yourself. That took courage. It did not feel like courage. It felt like stupidity. Sam stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. Listen to me. What happened was not your fault. Hendricks is a bully and a thief, and bullies do not stop unless someone makes them stop. You did that. I am proud of you. Even if it means you are in danger now too. Especially then. He cupped her face in his hands. Hannah, I have been running my whole life. From grief, from responsibility, from anything that felt permanent. I told myself I liked being free, but really I was just afraid. Afraid of losing someone again the way I lost my parents. Afraid of failing people. Afraid of staying in one place long enough to care about it. He stroked his thumb across her cheekbone. But then I met you, and for the first time in years I wanted to stop running. I wanted to stay. I wanted to build something real. And if that means standing up to men like Hendricks, then that is what I will do. Sam, Hannah whispered, her throat tight with emotion. I am falling in love with you, he said simply. I know it is fast. I know we barely know each other, but I have never been more sure of anything in my life. Hannah felt tears spill down her cheeks, but they were happy tears, relieved tears. I am falling in love with you too, she said, and it scares me half to death. Sam laughed and pulled her into his arms. Hannah pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his scent, feeling his heart beat strong and steady beneath her cheek. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other under the vast California sky, and Hannah felt something inside her begin to heal, something she had not even known was broken. The next few weeks were tense, but uneventful. Hendricks kept to town and Sam kept to the ranch, working hard and proving his worth over and over. He was good with the cattle, good with the horses, and good with his hands, fixing things that had been broken for months. Mr. Patterson relied on him more and more, and Mrs. Patterson treated him like a son, and Hannah fell deeper in love with him every day. She loved the way he smiled when he saw her in the mornings, like she was the best thing he would see all day. She loved the way he listened when she talked, really listened, like her words mattered. She loved the way he was gentle with the animals, the way he helped Mrs. Patterson with the heavy lifting without being asked, the way he treated everyone with respect regardless of their station. They stole moments together whenever they could. A kiss behind the barn, a walk after supper. Long conversations by lamplight about their dreams and fears and hopes for the future. Sam talked about the house they would build, the life they would make together. Hannah let herself believe in it, let herself imagine waking up next to him every morning, growing old with him. But in the back of her mind, she could not shake the feeling that something was coming. Hendricks was too quiet, too absent. Men like him did not forgive and they did not forget. She was right. It was a cold morning in late September when everything fell apart. Hannah was in the kitchen kneading dough for bread when she heard the gunshot. Her blood turned to ice. She dropped the dough and ran outside, her heart in her throat. Sam was on the ground near the corral, blood spreading across his shirt. Mr. Patterson was kneeling beside him, and Mrs. Patterson was screaming. In the distance, Hannah saw riders disappearing over the hill. No, Hannah breathed. Then louder, running, no, no, no. She dropped to her knees beside Sam, her hands fluttering uselessly over his chest. There was so much blood, too much blood. Sam, stay with me. Please stay with me. His eyes were open, clouded with pain, but he managed a weak smile when he saw her. Hannah, do not talk. Save your strength. She looked at Mr. Patterson desperately. We need a doctor. I sent Mrs. Patterson to fetch him. He will be here soon. But Mr. Patterson's face was grim, and Hannah knew what he was thinking. The doctor was in town, a good hour's ride away. Sam might not have an hour. It was Hendricks's men, Mr. Patterson said. They shot him from a distance and rode off. Cowards. Hannah pressed her hands against Sam's wound, trying to stop the bleeding, but it seeped through her fingers, hot and sticky. You are going to be fine, she told Sam, her voice shaking. "You are going to be fine. We are going to build that house, remember, with the chickens. You promised me." "Hannah," Sam said again. He lifted his hand and she caught it, holding tight. "Listen. No, you are not saying goodbye. I will not let you. Always so stubborn." He coughed and blood flecked his lips. "If something happens, nothing is going to happen." "If something happens," he insisted, his grip on her hand tightening, "I need you to know that I do not regret anything. Meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You made me want to be better, made me want to stay." "Then stay," Hannah sobbed. "Stay with me. Fight, please fight." "I am trying, sweetheart. I am trying." His eyes were starting to close and Hannah shook him gently. "Sam, no, stay awake. Look at me. Sam." But his eyes closed anyway and his hand went slack in hers. The doctor arrived 40 minutes later, riding hard, his bag bouncing at his side. He was a tired-looking man in his 50s with gray hair and gentle hands. He examined Sam quickly, efficiently, and then looked at Hannah with pity in his eyes. "The bullet missed his heart but punctured his lung. He has lost a lot of blood. I can try to remove the bullet, but his chances are not good." "Try," Hannah said fiercely. "Please try." They carried Sam into the house and laid him on the kitchen table. Mrs. Patterson boiled water and tore up sheets while the doctor prepared his instruments. Hannah held Sam's hand through all of it, through the probing and the cutting and the sewing. She held his hand and prayed to a God she was not sure she believed in anymore, promising anything, everything, if he would just let Sam live. The surgery took 2 hours. When it was done, the doctor washed his hands and looked at Hannah with exhausted eyes. "I removed the bullet and stopped the bleeding, but he has a fever already. Infection is a real risk. The next 24 hours will tell us if he will make it." He packed up his bag. "Keep him cool and comfortable. Give him water if he wakes. I will come back tomorrow to check on him." After the doctor left, they moved Sam to the spare bedroom. Hannah refused to leave his side. She sat in a chair by his bed, holding his hand, wiping his forehead with a cool cloth when the fever made him sweat. Mrs. Patterson brought her food, but she could not eat. Mr. Patterson went into town and returned with news that Hendricks was claiming ignorance about the shooting, but several witnesses had seen his men riding back into town around the same time. Their horses lathered like they had been ridden hard. "I contacted the territorial marshal," Mr. Patterson said grimly. "He will be here in 2 days to investigate. Hendricks will not get away with this." But Hannah did not care about justice or revenge. She only cared about the man lying pale and still in the bed, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. "Come back to me," she whispered, pressing her forehead against his hand. "Please, Sam, come back." He woke once during the night, delirious with fever. He did not seem to know where he was, and he called out for his mother, for people Hannah did not know. She soothed him as best she could, murmuring reassurances, getting him to sip water. When he finally settled back into sleep, Hannah allowed herself to cry, quiet tears that she wiped away quickly because she could not afford to fall apart. The next day was agony. Sam's fever climbed higher and he thrashed in the bed, tangling the sheets. Hannah changed the bandages and bathed him with cool water and held him down when he tried to get up. The doctor came and shook his head and left more medicine, but Hannah could see he did not think it would be enough. That night, Hannah climbed into the bed beside Sam and curled against his side, careful not to jostle his wound. She laid her hand over his heart, feeling its weak, irregular beat. "You cannot leave me," she said into the darkness. "I just found you. We are supposed to have more time. We are supposed to build that house and raise those chickens and grow old together. You promised, Sam. You promised." She fell asleep like that, exhausted and terrified, and woke to birdsong and sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment she was disoriented, unsure why she was in a bed instead of a chair. Then she felt the hand in her hair, gentle fingers carding through the tangles, and she looked up. Sam's eyes were open and clear, and though he was still pale, the awful grayness was gone from his skin. "Hannah," he said, his voice hoarse but steady, "you need a comb." Hannah let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and buried her face in his shoulder. "You are awake. Oh God, you are awake." "Easy, sweetheart, still hurts." But he was smiling, and his arms came around her, weak but real. "I thought I lost you," Hannah said, her words muffled against his shirt. "I thought you were going to die. I thought so too for a while there." He kissed the top of her head. "But I remembered I have something worth living for." Hannah lifted her head to look at him, and the love in his eyes was so clear, so uncomplicated that it took her breath away. "Sam Wright, if you ever scare me like that again, I will kill you myself." "Noted." He cupped her face with his hand. "Marry me, Hannah," she blinked. "What? Marry me?" "I know this is not the most romantic proposal, considering I am lying here full of holes and you look like you have not slept in a week, but I do not want to waste any more time. Life is too short and too uncertain. I want to spend whatever time I have left making you happy." He stroked her cheek. "Say yes, please say yes." Hannah felt fresh tears spill over, but she was smiling so wide her face hurt. "Yes, yes, of course yes." Sam pulled her down and kissed her, gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Hannah rested her forehead against his and breathed him in, alive, real here. "We are really doing this," she said. "We are really doing this." The territorial marshal arrived the next day, a stern man with a thick mustache and no patience for nonsense. He interviewed everyone at the ranch, examined the evidence, and then rode into town. 2 days later, word came that Hendricks and 3 of his men had been arrested for attempted murder. The trial would be held in the county seat, and justice would be served. Hannah did not care. She was too busy nursing Sam back to health, helping him sit up, feeding him broth, reading to him from Mrs. Patterson's collection of dime novels. He grew stronger every day, the color returning to his face, his strength returning to his limbs. A week after he was shot, he managed to walk out to the porch with her help, and they sat in the sun together like 2 old people, wrapped in blankets despite the warm afternoon. "I have been thinking," Sam said. "Should I be worried?" He laughed. "About the house, our house. I want to build it on the ridge, the one past the north pasture. The view is incredible up there and it gets good sun. We could plant a garden, have those chickens you want, maybe a cow for milk. It would be a good place to raise a family." Hannah leaned her head on his shoulder. "That sounds perfect. We will need to save up more money first, maybe work another year or 2. But Mr. Patterson said he would help with the materials and I can do most of the building myself." He hesitated. "If you do not mind waiting." "I would wait forever for you, Sam Wright." Hannah laced her fingers through his. "But I am glad I do not have to." They were married in October, in a simple ceremony at the church in Eureka. Mrs. Patterson cried happy tears, and Mr. Patterson gave Hannah away. Sam wore his best shirt, and Hannah wore a dress Mrs. Patterson had helped her sew from blue calico, the color of the sky. They exchanged vows in front of a handful of friends and neighbors, promising to love and cherish each other through sickness and health, through good times and bad, for as long as they both lived. When the preacher said Sam could kiss his bride, he did so thoroughly, earning a few scandalized gasps and a lot more laughter. Hannah did not care. She was Mrs. Samuel right now, and she had never been happier. Hendricks was sentenced to 10 years in prison for attempted murder, and his store was sold to pay his debts. His men were given lighter sentences, but they left Eureka after their release, and the town was better for their absence. The story of what Hendricks had done spread, and people who had been too afraid to speak out before began to share their own experiences of being cheated or bullied by him. Hannah found herself something of a folk hero, the woman who had stood up to a tyrant and lived to tell about it. She was not entirely comfortable with the attention, but she was grateful for the change it brought. Erica became a kinder place, a fairer place. Sam healed slowly but completely. By winter, he was back to full strength, working the ranch and saving every penny he could. Hannah worked too, taking in sewing and selling eggs and butter in town. Together, they scraped and saved and planned, drawing designs for their house in the evenings by lamplight, arguing good-naturedly about whether they needed 2 bedrooms or 3, whether the kitchen should face east or west. The house began to take shape the following spring. Sam worked on it whenever he had free time, and Mr. Patterson and some of the neighbors helped when they could. It was not a big house, just 4 rooms and a porch, but it was solid and well built, with windows that let in plenty of light and a fireplace for the cold winters. Hannah planted a garden, carefully tending tomatoes and beans and herbs. Sam built a chicken coop, and they bought 6 hens who clucked and fussed and laid beautiful brown eggs. They moved into the house in July of 1879, exactly 1 year after the day Sam had saved Hannah from the whip. It felt right somehow, like they had come full circle. That first night in their own home, they lay in their own bed and listened to the sounds of the night through the open window. "Happy?" Sam asked, pulling Hannah close. "So happy I could burst," Hannah said. "This is everything I dreamed of and more. Me too." He kissed her temple. "Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for taking a chance on a drifter with nothing to offer but a beat-up horse and a lot of scars. You offered me everything that mattered," Hannah said. "Your courage, your kindness, your love, that is more than enough." They made love that night in their own house, in their own bed, and it was tender and passionate and full of joy. Afterward, Hannah lay with her head on Sam's chest, listening to his heartbeat, strong and steady and real. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," Sam replied. "Always." The years that followed were not always easy, but they were good. The ranch prospered, and Sam became Mr. Patterson's partner, buying a share of the land and the cattle. Hannah's garden flourished, and she began selling her produce in town, earning a reputation for the best tomatoes in the county. They faced droughts and harsh winters, illness and injury, all the trials that come with frontier life. But they faced them together, and that made all the difference. In the spring of 1881, Hannah gave birth to their first child, a son they named Matthew, after Sam's father. He had Sam's gray eyes and Hannah's stubborn chin, and he was perfect. Sam wept when he held his son for the first time, overcome with emotion, and Hannah fell in love with him all over again, watching him cradle their baby with such tenderness. 2 years later, a daughter arrived. They named her Rose, and she was sunny and sweet and kept them on their toes from the moment she could crawl. Sam built her a little swing that hung from the oak tree by the house, and Hannah sewed her dresses from scraps of fabric, bright and cheerful. Matthew adored his little sister, and the 2 of them were inseparable. The house on the ridge became a place of laughter and life. Neighbors came for dinners and holidays. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson visited often, doting on their honorary grandchildren. Sam taught Matthew to ride and rope, passing on the skills his own father had taught him. Hannah taught Rose to cook and sew, but also to read and write and think for herself. Both children were raised to know their worth, to stand up for what was right, to treat others with respect and kindness. As the children grew, so did the ranch. Sam and Hannah expanded the herd, bought more land, built a bigger barn. They hired hands to help with the work, and they paid them fairly, treated them well. Their reputation spread, and people came from all over looking for honest work and honest wages. The ranch became a haven for those who had been down on their luck, and Sam and Hannah never turned away someone in need. But their favorite times were the quiet evenings when it was just the four of them, sitting on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains. Matthew would tell stories about his adventures, exaggerating wildly until Rose called him out and they dissolved into giggles. Sam would play his harmonica, a skill Hannah had not known he possessed until their first anniversary. And Hannah would sit in her rocking chair, sewing or knitting, soaking in the warmth and love that surrounded her. "Do you ever think about that day in town?" Sam asked one evening after the children had gone to bed. They were sitting together on the porch swing, Hannah tucked under his arm, watching the stars come out. "The day we met, all the time," Hannah admitted. "It feels like a lifetime ago and just yesterday, all at once. I think about what would have happened if I had just ridden on by. If I had not stopped," Sam shook his head, "I would have missed all of this, you, the children, this life. It does not bear thinking about." "But you did not ride by," Hannah said firmly. "You stopped. You helped me. You changed everything." "We changed everything," Sam corrected. "You were the one who was brave enough to speak up, even when it cost you. You were the one who took a chance on me. I just followed your lead." Hannah smiled and kissed his jaw. "We make a good team." "The best team," Sam agreed. Years continued to pass, marked by birthdays and anniversaries, by seasons of planting and harvest, by the slow, steady building of a life. Matthew grew into a strong, capable young man who took over more and more of the ranch work, showing the same integrity and work ethic his father possessed. Rose became a teacher, opening a small school in Eureka where she taught children to read and write and think critically about the world around them. Both children married well, to partners who loved and respected them, and in time they had children of their own. Sam and Hannah became grandparents, doting and proud, their house once again filled with the sound of young voices. They taught their grandchildren to ride and fish and garden. They told them stories about the old days, about how their grandparents had met, about the courage it took to stand up for what was right even when it was dangerous. As they grew older, Sam's hair turned silver and Hannah's face creased with laugh lines. Their hands became gnarled from decades of hard work, but they still fit together perfectly when they walked. They slowed down, letting Matthew and Rose take over most of the ranch duties, but they never stopped working entirely. The garden still needed tending. The chickens still needed feeding. And there was always mending to be done, fences to repair, 1,000 small tasks that made up the rhythm of their days. On their 30th wedding anniversary, Sam took Hannah back to the spot in Eureka where they had first met. The town had changed over the years, growing and modernizing. The old general store where Hendricks had worked was now a bank. The hitching post where Hannah had been tied was long gone, replaced by a water trough. But the memory remained, vivid and powerful. "Right here," Sam said, standing in the middle of the street. "This is where I saw you. Where I heard that whip and knew I could not just ride away. Right here is where my life began," Hannah said, taking his hand. "Not the day I was born, but the day you saved me. The day I understood what it meant to have someone stand beside you, to fight for you, to love you unconditionally." Sam pulled her into his arms, right there in the middle of the street, and kissed her like they were young again. A few passers-by smiled and shook their heads at the old couple acting like newlyweds, but Sam and Hannah did not care. "I would do it all again," Sam said. "Every hard day, every struggle, every moment of fear. I would do it all again just to have you. And I would speak out of turn 1,000 times if it meant finding you," Hannah replied. They walked back to their buggy hand in hand, and Sam helped Hannah up before climbing in beside her. As they drove back to their ranch, past the fields they had worked, the fences they had mended, the life they had built together, Hannah rested her head on Sam's shoulder and felt a deep, abiding peace. She had everything she had ever wanted. The little house, though it was not so little anymore. The garden that bloomed every spring. The chickens that still clucked and fussed in their coop. Children and grandchildren who were healthy and happy and good. And most of all, she had Sam, her partner, her protector, her love, the man who had stopped a lash and changed her life forever. They lived for many more years, watching their family grow, watching Erica change and prosper, watching the new century dawn with all its promise and possibility. When they finally passed, within 6 months of each other as lifelong partners so often do, they were laid to rest side by side on a hill overlooking their ranch. Their children and grandchildren gathered to say goodbye, sharing stories of the remarkable couple who had built something beautiful out of pain and injustice, who had shown them all what it meant to love fiercely and live courageously. On their shared headstone, beneath their names and dates, was a simple inscription that Matthew had chosen. Together, they changed the world. And in that small corner of California, in a house on a ridge where chickens still clucked and a garden still bloomed, their legacy lived on. In the stories told by firelight, in the values passed down through generations, in the knowledge that one act of courage, one moment of choosing right over easy, could change everything. Hannah had spoken out of turn in a dusty street in 1878, and Samuel had stopped the lash that would have silenced her. From that single moment of bravery, both hers and his, had grown a love story that spanned decades, a family that flourished, and a life that mattered. It was, in the end, all either of them could have asked for, and more than they had ever dared to dream.